my gym, rather than probably doing the wiser decision and saying, okay, this costs you 4 hours a week and you're making $4,000 a month. Maybe you should do this for 40 hours a week.
How can somebody listening to this become more of a long-term thinker intentionally?
You have to figure out what to do in the meantime. Like, patience isn't actually active. And this is a big finding for me, was that people are like, be patient. It's a terrible directive because no one knows what to do when you say be patient. Right now, I'm being patient for every other thing in my entire life except for this podcast, because time is elapsing and other things are going in progress. I have long-term 10-year goals that right now I'm being patient for by being on this podcast with you. And so I think what a lot of people need to do is figure out the games they need to play in the meantime. And so experts at things don't really have more impulse control. I think it's a fallacy. They figure out more ways to win in the meantime. So if you've been on a treadmill and you see 30 minutes, right? And then you're like, you get 5 minutes in and you're like, okay, only 5 more 5-minute chunks, right? That is, in a nutshell, what an expert does when they approach a project. They don't try and think I'm going to run 26 miles, right? If they're running the marathon, they say, how do I break this into a chunk that I can manage, right? And then what they do is they create more ways to win. And so in those 2 years, it wasn't like I just sat and suffered for 2 years and then the book's going to come out, right? I would have many victories along the way that would happen. It's like, oh, we just destructed this chapter. I just rewrote it again and it's killer. Or I just got this beautiful visual that just completely explains this thing with three shapes, and it just, it explains the whole concept, right? And so you get these little mini reinforcers, and then you have the long loop of reinforcement that is, for me, that I have now learned over and over again, is that the more time I put into something, not necessarily longer, but the more time I put into something, the fact that time elapses is secondary. The more time I put into something, the better it is. And what happens too is when you're working on projects, you're working on anything, is that if you work on it over a longer period of time, you have more time for creative solutions to come to you to the problems that you're thinking through. Like, the best launch I ever did in my life so far was actually of Prestige Labs, my supplement company. And it was because we actually planned it for a year. Mm-hmm. Other companies and other projects, because I was impatient, was like, let's do this in 12 weeks, right? And I can quote the entrepreneurs, you got to break, move, you got to, I do all that. But you know what worked really well? When we had thought through every contingency and every scenario, and we were completely staffed up, and we had done a beta test, and we had done a 5 times bigger beta test, and we had ran processing through, we made sure payouts were on time, we made sure we had inventory tracking that was automated, we made sure that we had the right ratio between customers, service people, and the number of tickets that were going to get bought. We knew we had supply chain lined up so that we could ramp up at a 10x or 20x month over month type of scaling, because we're going to thousands of locations, right? Like, that doesn't happen in a week. And so, like, great triumph takes great sacrifice. Just is what it is. Like, there's a quote in B.F. Skinner, who's a behavioral psychologist, and he starts one of his books. He says, many variables exist, and therefore many variables must be studied. And it's just about the context of human behavior. And so a lot of people want to make these idioms or these truisms that are like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like, but human behavior has a lot of variables. And so everyone wants to have the shortcut. And he just was like, many variables must be studied. It's just like, you can't shortcut the work. The work has to be done.
Deficits occur when we speak desires, right? And so I love this statement. A desire is a contract we make with ourselves to be unhappy until we get what we want. And so whenever we state a desire, like, I want this amount of money, I want whatever, you literally sign a contract that says, like, I won't be unhappy until that happens, right? And so, like, I had this thing earlier on where I was like, I want to have meaning. I want to have great meaning in my life. And I was talking to a guy who made a lot more money than me, because I asked him, I said, how do you create and destroy meaning in your work? That was the question I asked him on a podcast. And he was like, why do you think life needs to be meaningful? And it was the same exact thing as the happiness versus, like, the meaning thing, where it's like, I say life has to be meaningful, and therefore everything that I'm doing, like, I create this expectation of life. Whereas if life just is, it just is. And it's the only way that you can actually be there. It's just pure acceptance, right? Which is why, like, the whole, like, shoulds of, like, we should work, we should have balance, we should X. It's like, I believe marriage is a compromise. Like, these are just statements of belief that are casting expectations out in the world that are just bound to be untrue at some point and then create dissonance. And so it's like, I believe marriage is marriage, and I believe my marriage is my marriage, and I believe your marriage is your marriage. And, like, I believe that I can work 24 hours a day if I want to, and That is all, period. Not and it's bad or and it's good. And there's no judgment on it. It just is. And so like if I get dopamine secreted in my brain when I start working, cool. Like, and I will optimize for dopamine. And if I die, I know that in 1,000 generations, nothing I do anyways is going to matter. So who cares? Like, that's like the opening thing in my book is like, there are no rules. Like we live in this shoulds and have tos and like happiness. Everyone talks about it. And it's just like, everyone is unhappy because they say they want to be happy rather than being like, accepting like, fuck happiness. Like I just am, period. And then like, I don't need to judge the am, it just is. What I see happen all the time with entrepreneurs, especially when they apply to acquisition.com, they've got $1 million in profit, maybe it's the bare minimum for us to consider for investment. And they're like, here's my idea for how I want to expand and how I want your help. I want to start all these new product lines because I've already saturated my market because I'm spending $50,000 in Facebook ads and I can't spend any more than I currently am. Otherwise I lose the profitability of the ads. So I'm going to just start selling more and different offers and add massive complexity to my business that only makes $3 million top line per year. That is a mistake. And in this video, I'm going to walk through why. And the reason this is so important is because many people hit this first plateau and then think, oh, I should start a new business. Oh, I should start a new product line. When really they need to confront the problem ahead, which is they don't know how to get more customers within their current niche or space. Your market isn't capped. Your mindset is capped. Number one, from the marketing perspective, you have your method, which is the biggest thing you do. It's running paid ads. It's making content. It's doing outreach. It's getting referrals. It's getting affiliates. Those are the methods that you do to get customers. Underneath of that, you've got the platforms that you do that method on. You've got Facebook, you've got phones, email, Hulu, YouTube, you've got Google Ads. Underneath of that, you've got the media on the platform. So if I'm on Instagram, I can go Instagram DMs, I can go Instagram stories, I can go Instagram posts, I can go Instagram reels. I have all these different media within the platform. One level below that is how much volume am I doing within that media? Am I posting one story a day, one story a week, multiple stories a day, multiple posts a day? So like that chiropractor agency, if there are 100 other agencies that market to chiropractors and they're all marketing on Facebook, then you could probably add up all of the ad spend of every one of those agencies together. And that just gives you an idea of how much there is available in terms of number of new clients per month that all of them together are selling just on Facebook ads. Rewind real quick. If you're trying to pick what market you're going to go in, I talk about this in my book, $100 million offers. There's 4 things I want to look at. Number 1, are they in pain? Am I actually solving a problem for someone? Number 2, are they easy to find? Because if I can't find them, I can't sell them, right? Number 3, do they have the money to spend in order to buy my thing? Because if I'm trying to sell to broke people, it's probably not going to be a good idea. Number 4, are they growing? I don't want to be selling to newspapers. I want to be selling to something like old people there's more of them every single day that are retiring. If I have a market that checks all 4 of those boxes, then I know I'm at least in a good opportunity. Now, once I have that in place and I looked at the 4 variables that I talked about earlier, can I do a new method? Can I do it on a new platform? Can I expand to multiple types of media within the platform I'm currently on? Can I increase the volume that I'm currently doing in the mediums that I have? These are the things you could do immediately to get more customers, get more leads today.
What other ways would you say, if your life sucks, the easiest thing is to change your environment? What other ways could someone do that?
I mean, the environment is, this is I'm going to tangent and I'm going to come back. So if you've ever heard somebody say like, man, I hate Cincinnati. Cincinnati sucks, right? Or they go some city and like they go there for 2 days and they make a judgment across the entire city, right? But it's like, okay, let's go really deep. You ate at 3 restaurants and you saw 7 total people in Cincinnati. Does Cincinnati suck, or do the 2 restaurants that you went to or the 7 people that you were with are they not that cool? Well, it's so easy to just move like 2 miles down the street. It's the same reason people do staycations. It's like you don't even need to change cities. You can be in the same city and still change the environment. Like just moving out of your mom's basement, you know what I mean? And just going into another place with 4 guys can change the environment. And so like that's the thing that to me was so telling on this was so heroin addiction, super addicting, I'll put it that way. And when a bunch of soldiers came back from Vietnam, they had been addicted. I don't know if you've heard of this, right? 25% of soldiers who went to Vietnam tried heroin. It was like an insane statistic. And in the US, 90% of heroin addicts who go to clinics relapse. So they have a 10% long-term success rate. Tough. The stats are completely reversed from people who got addicted or did heroin in Vietnam and then came back to the US, which then you could draw the line, which is, it's better to change your environment than to even do anything else, because what happens is you eliminate all the triggers and cues that are associated with the habit that you're trying to destroy.
Do you see that the American government was absolutely concerned that there was going to be an epidemic?
Yeah.
They were adamant that all of these soldiers were going to come home and they were going to be these veterans that were all addicted to heroin.
Yeah.
Wild.
And there are, for sure, but so much proportion less than their quote should be.
Yep.
Because the problem with the current system and like, for anyone who's listening, you can still extrapolate the principle or the concept. People are in the environment that they are addicted. They change environments and they go to a clinic. They change the environment, they change their behavior. And then they go back to the same environment and their behavior changes yet again to match the environment. And so it's like, if you want to change your actions, the easiest thing you can do